Okay. Resume. So I'll turn this off.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, John.
Are you in South Carolina?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh,
We can only see your forehead. You need to adjust your camera somehow.
Welcome, Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Good.
There you are.
Oh,
I think this is open anyway.
how you been, Lynn?
Oh, fine. We're Zooming this meeting?
Yes.
Yes, and it will be recorded to be posted online.
Okay.
Counselor Coleman decided this is the better way because he'd had COVID. I guess.
Right.
Mhm.
I assume he wasn't too sick or.
No, he wasn't just sick at all. Yeah,
No, that's good.
but
I tried to print out the
Oh,
minutes and
hi, Jamie.
Hi.
hi.
my printer didn't work right.
Oh,
Do you need a copy?
Yes.
Do you have extra copies today?
I have copies of the letter from Attorney Deneen.
Okay,
Uh,
I'll go print an extra copy.
But I have, well, I cannot open WinMail. And
Oh.
if it could be sent
Thank you.
a different way,
We've been sending them as PDFs. Does that not work?
you know what, because I see WinMail, I didn't try, so
It's two copies there. Do you need two? Okay.
I'll give one for Holly.
let me just see if I can do it on here. Here, I can go.
Yeah,
print it.
usually when we
Thank you
meet
very
in
much,
person,
appreciate it.
the office prints out copies of most of it.
Yeah, well, I was doing it from home, so I just
Yeah,
printed it
I
out.
did too. A lot of paper waste. But do you print out the whole packet for the town council meeting?
But there are two members, I think, who want printed copies of the 9 of us.
And they're always over 100.
There are 100, yeah, the one I was looking at today was 146.
Oh, I haven't seen
Because,
it.
because the
There's not much
financial,
point in.
Oh, yeah.
the financial reports are huge, and
Sure.
Who looks at those?
Some
Well, if it's the
people-
budget, you might. you
Yeah,
might-
if the budget, the budget we get hard copies of.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because you have to move through it so often, and flipping back and forth online is much harder.
So my granddaughters use the iPhone to do everything. It's just amazing how those kids can flip through all that stuff and.
I'm better than some friends of mine, but I'm nowhere near as good as a kid.
yeah.
I still like a printed copy,
Well, you can write on.
but
it.
not
Copy.
the financial. I would have that, I would just be like, no.
Well, you learn how to look for certain things,
True, true.
but still, when you want to go from page 142 to 97 and then back to 160, and that's a real pain. And it depends on what system it's saved under, and it just when you have a large document and you have to go back and forth, it's really
Right,
good.
right.
When I was working at one point in the early 2000s, I wrote a handbook for community organizing. And I just got a call asking if they could put it online. And I said, sure. But then the other night I got it out to look at it, hard copy. And it wasn't saved on my computer because it was on a 3.5-inch floppy.
Oh, my goodness. Oh,
Nobody,
yeah.
nobody can read that. However, I have books from the 1700s, and there are books from the 1500s that you can read. So
Yeah,
I don't know whether 600 years from now, anybody will be able to read any of this digital
that's a good
stuff.
point. Well, the librarians do a good job. The Yukon librarians do a wonderful job. When you ask them to help you, they are very helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. So are town librarians, but
Right.
there comes a point when nobody has a machine anymore that reads the thing that you have.
Good, how are you?
You want to take one?
Oh, sure.
Most of my life. has
Oh, this
been
is great.
Oh, it's crazy,
virtual with
isn't it?
people.
I
John?
know.
You must have that.
Okay, well,
I don't see that Brian has shown up yet.
is Coleman available? We sort of need Counselor Coleman.
As far as I was aware, he was going to be here, but I don't see that he is logged in just yet.
And Suzanne Bonds will ask, I think, if it would be a Zoom, and I haven't seen her come in, but I guess we've got 4 of us, so we're okay. Assuming we need a vote on something. Other than the minutes.
Well, I can tell you what Brian has said his position is.
Okay, that's fine.
Was the meeting called to order? I'm sorry, I think I missed it.
Yeah, I just wanted, before I called it to order, to check on that. So I guess I will call the meeting to order. We have no public here, so there's no public comment. The second order of business is approval of the minutes of January 20th meeting this year.
So moved.
So move.
Just need a second.
Okay. I've looked at them.
I just put the sweater on 10 minutes before I left the house. I have not touched the cat already. I have cat hair all over it. It must be just flying through the air.
Mhm.
So are you able to second?
Oh, I will second, yes. I
Okay.
wasn't sure if you needed a second.
Jim, do you have any comments on the
No.
minutes?
No, I'm good.
Are you ready to vote? All in favor of approving the minutes of January 20th? Say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous, so passed. Okay. The reason we're here. Originally, I got a question from Counselor Coleman, who serves on the town council and also is a representative of the town council on the Mansfield Downtown Partnership. And he was appointed to the Downtown Partnership by the council, and he was concerned about a conflict. And basically, I thought it was an easy answer. I said conflict would arise if he voted as a member of the of the Mansfield Downtown Partnership and a request to the Mansfield Council. And that was based on what we talked about at the January meeting when we looked at a similar situation. Continued email exchanges. And at one point, Mayor Moran noted that ethics advice should come from the board, not me, which I think is appropriate. I thought this was an easy one, but I guess it's not. And you noted that the code specifically defines conflicts of interest as involving personal finances and not necessarily membership on other government agencies. And yet this was in conflict with what we did in January, where we determined that you could not be on a board or committee seeking money from the new board you're establishing for, I forgot the name of it.
All right, I can explain the reason for the difference.
Okay, so I've asked both you and Counselor Coleman to attend this meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to you and see both what you think we should do
Okay,
and explain some of the background, please.
all right, let me tell you about our code of ethics.
Here he is. All right, just a minute.
Hi, Brian. I have said the first sentence, but I have not yet started to explain, but I will now. We adopted this code of ethics after several years of working on it. The basic language came from a recommended code proposed by the Legislative Commissioner's Office for the General Assembly, or Office of Legislative Research, not Legislative Commissioner, Office of Legislative Research, for the General Assembly to adopt for municipalities. It was never adopted, but the model still existed. The model was developed with a full understanding of a long case history of challenges to the Hatch Act. Now, the Hatch Act was adopted, I believe, in the 1930s, and it prohibited government employees from political activity. Prior to the creation of the civil service, government service was by definition a political plum. You got your job because a politician recommended you, right? And then we did this huge switch that was recommended and advocated for by the progressives and the good government people. And the switch was you made jobs defined by quality and training and work, and you paid according to training and quality of work, and you prohibited political influence, with the exceptions of very few top jobs. So the original Hatch Act prohibited employees, government employees, from having any political activities whatsoever. And there are a whole long series of challenges, legal challenges to those original statutes and to state statutes, with the end result that these kinds of codes of ethics have become much narrower over time. And they are specifically, generally speaking, specifically designed to prohibit elected officials from coercing employees to do things, and for prohibiting forms of bribery in which a public official makes a decision based on financial reward from some interest group. So over time, this idea that the people who work for government, in whatever position they're in, are protected from political influence, and they are also prohibited, and they're protected because they're prohibited from engaging in certain kinds of political actions. But that prohibition has been narrowed and narrowed because it denied public employees of constitutional rights to vote, to have a political opinion, to express themselves and so on. So when we based our code on this modern set of ethics, you will see that it is very narrowly defined to prohibit people from benefiting financially for their decision from their government-based decisions. So it prohibits anybody from taking bribes. I mean, we put it in explicitly for taking bribes. If we wrote that, we thought, why do we have to say you can't take a bribe? I mean, everybody knows you can't take a bribe, but if it's not in the law, then you could take a bribe, right? So, so there are all kinds of conditions and specificity. The majority of the code really is written around what do you do when you get a complaint. So most of the language is around those kinds of issues, what kinds of hearings have to be held, what appeal rights there are, and so on. The first part of the code is all about definitions and what constitutes a gift, what constitutes who this covers, and what kinds of things are prohibited. It very specifically says, there's a long section on what gifts don't include, by the way. It specifically defines a conflict of interest. Sure it does. I have it right here in front of me. It's section 25(7) under rules, and it's subsection C. And it says, a public official or public employee shall not vote upon or otherwise participate to any extent in any matter on behalf of the town of Mansfield if he or she, a business with which he or she is associated, an individual with whom he or she is associated, or a member of its immediate family has a financial interest in the transaction or contract, including but not limited to the sale of real estate material, supplies, or services. However, it also says you can do it if the purchases and so on are done entirely in accordance with the town's code for purchases. So for example, if planning and zoning has a builder on the board and they appeal, the board approves some form of construction. If that person has to go through the regular bidding process and wins the bidding process, independent of anything they do on the board, that they are in competition with every other business, that's okay. It's just that you can't use your position to personally benefit without going through the normal procedures. The idea is that everybody is held to the same rules and regulations. Right, so we asked after Mr. Coleman raised, the other piece of this is we put council members on boards and commissions so that the council makes sure that what they're doing is in accordance with what the council wants them to do. So for example, when the partnership board is talking about salary raises, they talk to the town manager and to the mayor about what kinds of salary increases the town is giving so that they don't come in.
Consistent.
Yes, so they don't come in with a number which is then going to be voted against on the council because it's so out of proportion, right? So the function of the person who is there as a council appointee is to represent the interests of the council on that board. And that there is no conflict whatsoever when the board that he sits on or she sits on has come to a conclusion that doesn't conflict with the council. He can or she can report it back to the council and vote on it as he or she wishes. Noting also that there is no personal financial interest. Right. So Brian raised this question. We asked Kevin Deneen to do it. to take a look at it. The problem was the earlier decision that he had rendered about the housing authority, or it's not the housing authority, Affordable Housing Committee.
Right.
The problem with the Affordable Housing Committee is that there are business competitors whose confidential information might be revealed. So if the housing authority is going to build and it's got a contract, an RFP out for a contract on something, and it gets a chance to see, and that person gets to see what the competition is bidding on that property, that's where the conflict arises.
Okay.
It's not that they're sitting on two similar boards, is that they may have access to confidential information. So in his letter, Kevin points that out. He says, this provision requires the council member recuse himself or herself based on a financial interest in the transaction. And it's defined as interest representing an actual or potential economic gain or loss, which is neither de minimis nor shared by the general public. So for example, at the legislature, it's been ruled that a teacher who serves in the legislature doesn't have to recuse herself when they are voting on pay increases for public school teachers, because it's public and it's generally applied. Anything that comes to her is not going to be because of the decision they made, but not because of her personal decision, but because it applies to the general public. So there's no reason, no legal reason that a council member serving on a board or commission cannot vote on anything that board or commission does, as long as it doesn't affect them personally.
So there is not a conflict.
There is no conflict. I mean, the reason we put people on those boards is that so we can monitor what they're doing and report back to the
That
council.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So Councillor Coleman, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do. I feel it is a conflict of interest, because when I jump into something, I jump in with both feet. I become passionate, and having a passion, being on a board, and I appreciate there's so much work that can be done on the Mansfield Downtown Partnership, where having to vote on finance is really such a little part of it. And I feel as though if I'm passionate about something, it may skew my feeling when the council votes on budgeted money for the Mansfield Downtown Partnership. And the same thing could hold true with the Mansfield Discovery Depot. If someone's very passionate about childcare, and just, it may skew somebody's feelings enough to, make them vote for more money, or out of passion, not out of corruption or anything like that, just out of passion. And I'm passionate about things, so I don't want that to cross over into the budget, and I'll recuse myself because of that reason. But yeah, I most certainly feel that there could be something there that would be inappropriate.
We often, speaking as a member of the Democratic Town Committee, we often recruit people for their passions.
Right.
We want somebody on the council who cares about, I don't know, economic development or the environment or whatever, is because we want somebody who knows something about it, and we want somebody for whom it is a passion. As long as you don't have any personal financial consequence, it's not a violation. Now, the other thing I say to people all the time is, if you have a niggling feeling that this is a conflict, recuse yourself.
You still may recuse
may
yourself, even
recuse yourself.
if it doesn't violate
That's right.
the code.
And Paul Shapiro used to recuse himself. He was a member of the board of the Samaritans that runs Juniper Hill and those buildings. And so he would recuse himself for any any discussion that had to do with housing for the elderly, because he was privy to information for one thing. But he also felt that he had a conflict. He also felt that he had a conflict voting on budgets for the board of the partnership board and the town council, and he would recuse himself. I never thought that was necessary, and I always voted. And it certainly is not required by our ethics code.
Okay.
But if you feel there's a conflict, recuse yourself. Say why you're recusing yourself, leave the room. It's perfectly acceptable. I wouldn't ask anybody to act against their own moral principles.
Does that make sense, Councilor Coleman?
Yeah, it does make sense, but is that stated in the code of ethics where if somebody feels they should recuse themselves, just like the mayor said, is that stated in the code of ethics anywhere? That would probably be helpful.
No, all the code of ethics tells you is when you must recuse yourself. There's no reason, nobody's going to say you have to sit here and vote, whether you like it or not.
And Counselor, I hear what you're saying about passions, but it wouldn't be the case, I don't think, in those kinds of votes that you that you mentioned, that the people would benefit themselves financially.
Yeah, I understand the difference between the two, definitely. It's not personal financial gain. I just feel so that if I'm so passionate about something, I may not be making, I might be acting on passion as for that board, as opposed to being working for the benefit of the taxpayer as a town councilor.
Well, I would hope that nobody would act in their own personal interest. In any case, if you are passionate about something, generally speaking, people are nominated because their passions coincide with community, not that it goes against the interest of the community.
I understand that.
And
I feel like I could do a lot of great work on the Mansfield Downtown Partnership without voting on the financial part of it. I could accomplish just as much.
right. So I just want to make sure that we aren't limiting them. One of the real problems that we are having as a nation is getting people to run for office.
Mhm.
And we really don't want to make ethics rules such a minefield that people are scared to death to run. And I know that in the past, and then certainly in other communities, these codes of ethics have used it as weapons against people you disagree with. And that makes life really miserable. And there was a time in Middletown where a whistleblower, quote unquote, filed so many lawsuits against members of government that it was costing people tens of thousands of dollars to defend themselves against totally unwarranted claims. The claims got so bad that the whistleblower was prohibited from filing any court cases, which is unheard of. But in the meantime, people lost, literally tens of thousands of dollars making sure that their defenses were up against these things. So we didn't want an ethics code that would be a minefield or a trap. We wanted.
That's mine.
And so it is as narrow as we could get it and still have it be very meaningful.
Does that work for you, Councilor Coleman? That basically it's your own personal financial interest that you need to recuse yourself, and otherwise recuse yourself if you feel there's an additional conflict of interest?
Yeah, that's what I've been practicing at the moment, and that's been working okay. How often does the ethics board review our code?
Why don't I?
And do you think it needs reviewing at all?
I'm having trouble hearing.
by Saturday anyway.
I mean, the mayor makes a good point. You don't want it a minefield, but then you don't want it a sieve either.
Thanks.
You know, it works both ways.
Talk to you later.
Well, have there been any successful ethics complaints in the last 5 years?
No.
We're a pretty ethical community on the whole.
Yeah, I think my personal opinion is that the new ethics code has been excellent because we don't get, we get people reporting when there is a conflict. But we have, I think we've only had one case, haven't we?
Well, we had a case that involved a former town official
Yes.
that was essentially a trivial, ridiculous case,
It was, but the process worked fine.
but it
That
worked,
was-
yeah.
So that
Yeah.
we've had one case that we
Right.
looked at and it was, yeah,
Do you get requests for advisory opinions?
no.
Because I always thought that was probably the most useful thing this code could do, that people would say, I'm gonna do this and I'm not
Well,
sure.
This is where we are right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
last one.
I'll tell you where we have a real problem with the code. And that is that members of the council believe that nobody should accept a gift. The problem is, in the school systems,
No,
they
we've been around
encourage children to give gifts to their teachers at the end.
And
of the
coaches.
this. No,
Coaches,
they're not encouraged. I was a
Well,
teacher in
well,
Mansfield, and we do not encourage gifts.
okay. Well,
Might be different for coaches. I don't know.
or how
but
about choir conductors or
I know
orchestra?
that seemed to be the issue.
I will tell you that one of the most vociferous advocates of this position was Paul Shapiro. And one year we went to a volunteer appreciation night run by Youth Services, where they appreciate all of the UConn students who work with Mansfield kids. There's one tonight at 5, which I have to kind of keep an eye on the time. But we were given little gifts. And I said, Paul, you have to give this back. He said, no, I'm not going to give this back. It was worth more than he was allowed, but there are times when gift giving is necessary. Now, what the Board of Education did, is it adopted this code in its entirety. And except that it is administered by the board, not by ethics board. And because there are labor relations implications too. That's why you only give opinions, because the unions and the management have to do the enforcement. But they amended the gift giving thing to allow some gifts.
We spend a lot of time with the teachers on this issue, and that they have a code of ethics, and that is the one area where it differs from
That's it.
the Mansfield town. And we finally came to the conclusion we can't deal, we'll just have to wait till we get a complaint. But if this ethics committee gets a complaint that a teacher got, say, $110 worth of stuff, then we'll have to address it at that point.
And I will tell you that CABE, Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, will throw all their lawyers in to defend the school system, because they are going to say the boards of education are independent of the town.
See, that we're fully aware of that, and we know that we don't want that to happen because it's a huge expense.
Yes,
And
a minefield. I keep using the
Mine's a good way
term,
to put it.
but it will engage the whole state in the dispute.
And
And
we realize that it'd be just not Mansfield, but So that's where we are. We just let that drop because we can't deal.
yeah, I think that's the only way to deal with it at this point, because there are parents who are going to give gifts. They're going to take cookies in. They're at the end of the year, they're going to collect $1 from every kid in the band and give a bouquet of flowers to the band leader. I once had somebody in the office. I gave a $10 Dunkin' Donuts card too, and that was within the limits. But then I bought a $6 card to go with it, and I thought, oh my God, have I gone
You're
over?
over,
I mean, is
yeah.
the card a gift or
Yeah.
not? So,
I would err on caution on that. I wouldn't want to get hung up on something so small. You know,
No.
it's not that hard to not accept a gift or give a gift. I wouldn't want to give anybody the opportunity. What's the financial cutoff on gifts for town?
$100 total, I think $25 on an individual.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's ample enough. I don't see myself taking gifts, but I see myself following those rules. They're there for a reason.
yeah, a bouquet of flowers can easily run you more than $25.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Well, you might have to buy carnations.
So that's why there's the exception in ours and in the state law for life things like weddings and childbirths and stuff. You can give a little bit more under those circumstances.
Okay.
Now, do the town employees get ethics training annually?
Yes,
Okay,
the cases that at the state level that caused a real problem was that in one of the major lobbying firms, the two principals got married. And all of their friends were the legislators, so the legislators came and gave them gifts.
Mhm.
And the question was, what did they have to do with that? They all had to report it, but everybody had to report they had given gifts to everybody.
But it didn't prevent it from happening, right?
No, it didn't prevent it from happening. They just everybody had to report it. So that's the other thing about a lot of ethics code rules, and they're designed to hold things up to sunlight, to scrutiny.
Sure.
They may not prohibit it, but they say it has to be public information, and that's, there's so much public information out there now, very few people actually go looking.
So, as I say, then again, reviewing where we are, as long as there's not a personal financial benefit, you're okay, but you can use your judgment to determine if you think there's a conflict of interest. Is
I will
that,
follow that. That's what I'm doing now. Thank you, John.
okay, thank you, Counselor Coleman.
Okay,
And thank you both for participating in the meeting. Do any of the committee members here have further questions or comments?
No,
Okay. Thanks, Jim, for coming in from South Carolina.
you're welcome.
Enjoy your stay there.
I am enjoying your daffodils.
Oh, good.
That wonderful row of daffodils outside your old office.
There's a lot of them all over town. I give them away.
Ah,
Yes.
How you been, Jim?
Good. How are you, Brian?
Not bad. Been a long time since I see your son, but I don't see you anymore.
Yeah, it has been a long time.
Yeah. So you're retired in North Carolina?
Well, I'm retired and we come down here in the wintertime.
Yeah.
We still live in Mansfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
Okay.
fortunate.
You have other?
I have 2 copies of lawyer Attorney Denise's letter. Should I leave them or?
This be part of the minutes, I think. I
Sure.
haven't read it.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll leave it.
So do we have to make a statement or about anything or take a vote or do we, no?
Oh,
You can simply endorse Attorney Denise's
Yeah.
letter.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I just did. since-
And
Yeah, he says it's not a conflict of interest because of the financial piece. But the last paragraph says that they're always entitled, the council member's always entitled to make his or her own decision.
okay, that's it. That's what you said
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, okay, let's make a motion to endorse the letter.
okay, so I
Through the
can,
process.
I'll make a motion to endorse Kevin Dean's letter.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further comments on that? Well, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. Okay.
How would you get a paper copy to Jim?
corrected?
It's part of the town council's minutes from the first meeting in April of this year. So if you want to get it online, that's where it is.
I'll take your word for it.
That's where I got it, so.
He's gonna interrupt his
If
vacation.
you'd like
to
it,
do that.
Jim, I'll scan it and send it to you.
There's no need, John.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Kara, do we have any other businesses? Oh, yes, we do.
Okay,
Okay. Saul and Jamie are both up for reappointment. I would hope you'd be,
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
okay, thanks.
yes, I'll stay as an alternate.
Okay. Well, maybe it's not necessary. I don't know what,
Oh, if it's not, then,
it solves the question. I guess I'll try to send him an email and see.
He has been on town committee Zooms recently.
Okay, he was on our last Zoom.
I mean,
Okay,
at his age, who knows what's gonna happen tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Okay, but definitely as an alternate, and if there is a position, then we'll move you into it. As far as I'm concerned, you're every bit a member of the committee as anybody else. Okay. I will check with Saul.
Good luck.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
thanks a lot, Tony.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and so Jamie would like to continue.
Got it.
Is there anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So we,
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Good to see you, Jim.
Take care.
Nice to see you, Jamie. I would. Thanks,
Okay.
John.
Yeah, thanks, John. You
I thought I
really.
answered the thing so simply, but I tried to work it based on what